Thank you so much for joining us today, Lucy. We're so stoked to have you on the show finally. It's been 18 months in the build-up trying to get you here between us all. But in this interview, we hope to talk about your incredible work with Rizing Studios and also about self-care for activists, which is a very important topic globally. Before we dive right into it, though, we always like to learn a bit more about our subjects and their vegan journey. And I understand yours really came into bloom while on a silent retreat, dedicating yourself to a bit of your own self-care. And could you tell our audience a little bit about how taking that time to stop and go within helped you to discover your impact of the actions outside of yourself?
Thank you so much, Gareth and Jackie. It's just such a pleasure to finally connect like this. As you say, it's been 18 months that we've been trying to line this up, and it's perfect timing. And yeah, we've been connected for a couple of years, but it's really nice to finally meet you and be in this space and be able to connect. So thank you for having me. Yeah, my journey, I guess, started I was thinking about it the other day, the timing, it must have been about 6 years ago, exactly this month, that I actually was in not a great place emotionally or physically in the UK. I was in quite a difficult kind of situation and experienced some negative experiences at the time. And I realized that I really needed to just go within and just come back to myself and be in retreat and be in Asia. So I went from the UK to Asia and stepped into this 10-day Vipassana retreat, which is for those of you who haven't heard of Vipassana, it's a meditation technique that's super, super powerful. It's about the senses, it's about coming into our bodies and also subtle energies and working with subtle energies as well as our consciousness, and really expanding our awareness and our experience of life through our senses. So yeah, that was in Cambodia, November 2016. So just about 2015. So 6 years ago. And I think what's really important to remember is that what happens within our hearts and our minds is very much connected to and a reflection of what's happening within our physical environment, our bodies, our outer reality. And that outer reality is also connected and very much reflective of what's going on within us, within our hearts and our minds as well. So that's what that technique kind of teaches us as well. It's about the inner and the outer. And so because of some of these experiences that I'd had just a couple of months beforehand, but also other previous life experiences that I've had, such as, being displaced from my homeland, where I grew up in Zimbabwe when I was a kid, and losing my mum when I was little as well, my birth mother. That plus the physical sort of trauma that I experienced in the UK at that time brought me into this place where I was just, things had to change, something had to change for my reality. I needed to really shift a whole lot within myself. And it actually, the physical pain, the agony that I was in at the time, the experiences that I'd had, and the connection that I was developing with myself, and really getting to know and understand and love myself through that meditation retreat, really opened up my consciousness and allowed me to see things in a very different way. And because just a couple of months beforehand as well, I'd watched the movie Earthlings, which I know probably a lot of people watching this might have heard of. If you haven't heard of it, it is very powerful, but it is also very disturbing and very graphic. And I was aware of some of the things that go on within the industries, animal industries, but it really shook me. It shocked me. And so all of these things kind of culminated in this point on this retreat where I was like, my mind was blown, my heart was blown wide open. Everything was just, my life was complete, just flipped on its head. And I realized I needed to well, I suddenly felt this connection with animals that I'd seen in this documentary about the animal industries. And I saw myself reflected in these animals, and especially in terms of, you know, the dairy industry. For people watching who don't know about dairy, you know, mother-child separation is a very inherent part of that, and most animal industries is the separation of mother and child, and also not being in their natural environments, you know, being in these sort of very unnatural places, right? And physically put through a whole lot of physical trauma as well as emotional trauma of the separation of the families. But I was able to put myself into that situation and to really see myself reflected in their lives and see them reflected in my life. And it just it got me to a point where I realized, like, I really needed to do something to pull myself out of that matrix, you might say, the paradigm that we've been born into. You know, we're not born, we're born free, we're born inherently free ourselves, but we've been born into this paradigm of conditioning, of programming, that you might call a matrix. And I realized that my heart was vegan, and it was, I have to admit, it was a couple of months after that, because of the trauma and everything that I was going through. It was a very difficult time, and I knew that I needed to give myself that time to really step into it and do the research more, and to really be more clear in myself of what I wanted to, how I wanted to live. But that, it just really showed me who I really was. And I was able to really get to know myself on that deeper level through that experience, and to realize how much of an impact we each as individuals we have on the world around us, and also how much of an impact that outer world has on our inner experience and our hearts and our minds. So it was a very, very transformational time for me, for sure. And I highly recommend meditation in general, but also Vipassana as a technique. I really recommend that to everybody. It's so powerful, and it's so it's just such a beautiful thing. It's a challenge for sure. It's definitely not an easy experience. 10 days of silence, and, you know, no social media, which is great. But also, you know, it's like even deeper than that. We're not supposed to be writing or connecting in a physical way. It's just about what's inside and connecting in with our hearts, our minds, our bodies. And it's a beautiful challenge. I think it's amazing. So I highly recommend it to everybody.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. And I couldn't agree more. I think it was, you know, Gareth and I've got a lot to thank you for personally, which we'll get into as we talk more. But, you know, because of you, we got into meditation, and it was actually Bob Isaacson, the founder of Dharma Voices for Animals. He got in touch recently to say he'd just been on a silent retreat, and couldn't recommend it highly enough. But for you, as you say, we've been in touch for a while now, although this is the first time we've officially properly met. And you know, a lot of people can become vegan, but you really threw yourself into the whole world of activism as well. And that was how I came to hear of you. I think at the time you were in the UK, you were doing a tour with Seb Alex, Josh Entis, and you know, it was you went on a real whirlwind tour. You really threw yourself into activism, and that was how I came to hear of you, doing your workshops and traveling around, developing Paradise Rising Studios, which, you know, we can find out all about. So for our audience who may not heard of Paradise Rising Studios yet, can you tell us a bit about what your intentions and goals are of this project?
Thank you. Yeah, I'd love to. As you say, it was a couple of years ago. It was a whirlwind. It was definitely that activism tour that you're referring to in Ireland and the UK, with Seb and Josh and the others, that I was super, you know, honored and grateful to have connected with, and did a lot of, you know, quite intense work with, you might say, in Ireland at the time. And then I continued that into England and Europe, back to England and kind of all over the place. It was quite intense. But that was about a year after I had first started doing Paradise Rising, which was just Paradise Rising at the time. So it was more of an organization. It was more a network, a support network for activists. It was about mental and emotional health. It was about support, as opposed to what it is now, which is much more of a business. So it's I've over the past 18 months, beginning of lockdowns and everything last year, again, I realized something needed to change. And that was after my own burnout a few months beforehand, about 2 years ago now. And I realized that I couldn't be in the position that I was in at the time. I felt like, there's so many amazing people doing so many amazing things for activists, activist support groups, psychologists doing amazing things. But I really felt the weight of it on my shoulders. I really felt like this massive responsibility kind of being underneath the movement in a way, feeling like, trying to hold it up. And I realized that I needed to kind of flip it and be more of more aligned with my artistic work as well, and more support from a place of encouragement and empowerment, as opposed to somebody that people would sort of fall back on in a way. And so it developed into something more of a it became the studios, which is now, at this very exciting time, we're stepping into a place of being more of a business that is supporting people's messages through the arts, through sharing people's messages through the arts, whether that's visual art, through painting, through dance, through drama, theatre, filmmaking, but especially audiovisual arts through music and the visual component of music and videos as well. So yeah, very exciting times. I'm honored and I'm grateful to be doing this work as well. So it's quite different to what it was a couple of years ago when we connected, and you did I think a couple of really beautiful articles about it. So thank you for that. And it really, it's a very exciting, changeful time for me and for the business, because we're going to be working with a lot of incredible activist artists. This is, I don't know if you'll be able to see him, but this is Bo.
Oh, hello, Bo. Welcome to Vegan FEA, Bo. Oh, but that's very nice to meet Bo. But yeah, we absolutely love this new creative focus for Paradise Rising Studio, and creative activism is something that we'd love to showcase more on Vegan FTA, because it has such a power and a depth to it. And for myself as well, being a creative sort as well, like painting and drawing, constantly doodling on things all over my desk, which fortunately the audience cannot see. There's doodles everywhere. And yeah, it's another way to go within, isn't it? Yeah. And it's something that you can really help express. And when we work in this animal rights field, especially, we can be dealing with some really grim stuff on a daily basis. For us doing it full time, there's some weeks where having a creative outlet is just it's necessary really for me. I need something to escape into. Jackie's problem then is to get me out and away from the painting.
Yes, he goes within for a very long time. But I mean, I've always been a writer for years as well, and I've only recently, I did poetry when I was a kid, and all of a sudden I've got back into poetry, and I realized that is in itself another great form of activism, of getting your thoughts out there and your experiences and your feelings, and in a really impactful way. And it doesn't, you can share them or you can not share them, but it's something that's hugely powerful. And we should mention that, Lucy, you yourself are an incredibly talented artist, so it's wonderful that you're doing this. I couldn't think of anybody better to be behind Paradise Rising Studios, so we really look forward to seeing everything that you've got going on, and we can share some links to to your work, or if you've got any examples of, I've seen your art and it's just beautiful. So thank you, and thank you for helping us as well.
Well, I'll jump ahead to one of my questions actually, because
go on then.
I think
it's not like him to go off script at all.
Just slightly, but because you're talking about burnout and such, and I was first introduced to you when you put out it was an assessment and a self-care resource that Jackie wrote one of her articles about, and that was helping activists to evaluate their mental health condition and see whether they were experiencing burnout themselves. And burnout is something that so many activists face. And actually, when we were talking to, I think it was Susan Hargreaves, she was saying about, anyone who's been in the animal rights sort of area for a long time is going to have some form of PTSD, or, we're all going to be burnt out to some degree, because, as I was just saying before, we deal with some heavy stuff, like what's going on out there to the animals. It's just bulldozers you. So having that out there and having a resource for people to see what state they're in, because so many of us, we don't realize that we're getting burnt out. We just carry on, we just keep going, we give our all until we've got nothing left to give. And it's a noble thing to do it for the animals, but like we now say, after having experienced burnout ourselves, is you've got to be able to look after yourself to look after others, and that's the animals included. And we're wondering if you could share with our audience a little bit about burnout and any tips you might have for people who think they might be approaching this state. And I will also add that we'll link the article in the description so people can go check out that resource and learn a bit more about that. But if you have any tips for people approaching that state, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely. As you say, I think it's really unfortunate and really a sad thing that it has become such a kind of a given, that people in this space, it's like we kind of make these, or people sometimes make these off the cuff kind of comments like, oh, she's in burnout, like it's a given. And I don't believe that that's that it's necessary. I don't believe that we absolutely have to be in that kind of state. It's not natural for us to be in those kind of states. And as you say, we wouldn't wish them on anybody. And I think preventing us from getting to that point is super important. I think it's vital that we look after ourselves so we actually don't even get to that point. We don't have to deal with PTSD. We don't have to deal with burnout. We don't have to have depression, because there are so many activists who are just pushing through so much and still dealing with depression and anxiety disorders and like all these things at the same time. And I don't think that's something that's kind of been created. As you say, we're dealing with things that are really heavy, really traumatic, and constantly being exposed to very graphic imagery, very traumatic things, and especially for those people who are doing like quite what you might call like outlawish kind of things that their soul calls them to do. They're doing those things so that other people don't have to. But doing things like blockades, doing things like slaughterhouse shutdowns, all that kind of direct action, but also just being exposed to the reality of what's going on, just knowing what's happening in the world can be really traumatic in itself. So cultivating love for ourselves and cultivating a sense of self-compassion as well as compassion for the animals, because that's what it's about. It's about compassion, to me, consistent compassion for the animals, which is what veganism is, but also consistent compassion for ourselves and other human beings, other activists. But everything starts from within. It all starts within ourselves. So having that love and that compassion for ourselves first, and allowing ourselves to take the breaks when we need to, switch off from social media. Really, if somebody feels like they're approaching that kind of state, or they're not feeling right within themselves, firstly, really encourage you to get in touch with your physical body, because that's it's like the interface between our internal reality and what's going on around us. And so if what's going on around us and what we're absorbing through information, through the imagery, through, what we're reading about, what we hear about going on around the world, but also just the energies. People as empaths, as activists, a lot of us would identify as empaths, people that pick up on a lot of other people's energy and a lot of animals' energies. So if we're absorbing that energy, we're able to tell if something's not okay through our bodies and what it's doing to our stomach. People might have like digestive disorders, or feeling just not right in our bodies. So getting in touch with our body and knowing how our bodies operate, and how our minds and our hearts operate in conjunction with that. And then you can tell if you really need to take a break, please. Don't feel like, I think people resist taking breaks, or resist stepping away completely, even if that's what's needed. If you need to just not do that work in that way anymore, there's other things that we can do. As you say, art as activism is really powerful. That's what I do, and what I'm really encouraging for a lot of people. If people still feel called to do the other stuff, just make sure that you're able to get to a place that you feel safe and you feel comfortable, and you're with people that you feel comfortable and safe with, because the people and the energies that we have around us are going to impact our internal state so profoundly. So being around people that we feel safe with, that we trust, getting into an environment, even if we're staying with friends for a few days, or just making sure we're able to take a week off if we need to be at home, if you need to be in bed for a few days. Even after the boot camp, the event that I ran a couple of weeks ago, I was super tired afterwards. I won't say burnt out, but I needed to take a few days in bed and just like recuperate, come back to myself, and really look after myself in that time, so I can keep going, because this is a marathon. What we're doing for the animals and for the planet as a whole, for humanity, guiding the evolution of the planet at this time, it's not a sprint. It's not something that's, it's not going to happen overnight. Where this is my life is dedicated to making the world a better place for all beings, for all life. And we've really got to allow ourselves to cultivate that self-love, and switch off. Just first thing, I think, is recognizing when we need a break, allowing ourselves to take a break, be in that safe place, and just switch off from social media, grab a book, get fresh air, get sunshine, drink lots of water, really get in touch with what we're eating as well. Because I think there's a misconception around veganism sometimes, that it's all just salad or grass, but people end up relying on fast food as well, vegan junk food, which is really not great for our mental health either. So getting into a really great diet, and it's not easy, people are letting go of addictions through all sorts of ways, even I'm still trying to shake sugar addiction. We're all working through different things at the same time. So yeah, I think really getting in touch with ourselves, and developing ways that we know are good for us to be able to keep going in whatever direction it looks like after we've taken that break. Because sometimes we might take a break and we'll realize, actually, this work isn't what I need to be doing. I need to be focusing on this now, or I need to just work on my own personal development, so that 2 years from now I can be doing something that's that much more aligned. Even taking a break for that long, because sometimes people's burnout can look like 2 years. Sometimes people's burnout can be a weekend. It really depends. We're all different. We're all unique. We're all individual. There's no there shouldn't be any judgment. I think non-judgment in general for everyone is super important, but especially not judging ourselves for doing what we need to do for ourselves, knowing that we're actually going to be that much more effective in the future. So yeah.
That's some brilliant advice.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you.
I think this is when the human animal thing really comes up, and you've got to be kind to that form of animal as well. And yeah, just being kind to yourself, and especially touching on the food thing. Like for us lately, I've got into some bad vegan junk food habits lately, and for us, just going back towards eating more sort of whole food, plant-based, more whole foods and stuff like that, that's been really positive in just a few days for our mental health and getting back up. And for us with our burnout, it's been, it's sort of been on and off between the two of us. And then, you got to
tag team at it. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be kind to yourself. And I want to clarify as well for folks as well, it's not always just the frontline work that can cause this, for us, with Jackie's health conditions and such, we don't often manage to get out to a lot of frontline stuff. But what we do is we're constantly working in the back line, and
we're still full-time activists, aren't we? Yeah.
We are full-time dealing with this stuff. And I see a lot more of the graphic stuff, but, it can affect us too when we're, writer and a video maker. It's sort of, it doesn't matter what line you're in. If you're working with the animal rights and looking into that, it can affect you from so many different perspectives. And what you were saying is just so important that people take that on board. And
I think a lot of people don't realize. I mean, that's why you have helped us so much in the first place when we first came across, when I was writing the article about you and showing about the resources. And at the time I was thinking, I think I might be feeling a bit burnt out, but no, it's in my head, It's like Gareth said, I wasn't going out to protests. I wasn't going out to vigils. I was bedridden for 7 months, but I was still writing like anything, and processing a lot of stuff, and, going through your resource. And I was sort of ticking all the boxes, and then it sort of said, you need to get help. And I was like, oh wow, really? I do need to do something about this. This is actually a thing. Then it's not in my head. And I think a lot of people do think that burnout is in their heads, that it's not a competition, that what other people see or deal with or are going through is any greater or lesser than what you yourself are going. We can only deal with so much. And I think one of those problems is recognizing when we need to take a break, but as you say, there's no rhyme or reason with the amount of time either, with how long a burnout does or should last. And with the whole taking a break from social media, I think as activists, we also, I shouldn't call it FOMO. It's not like fear of missing out, but it's kind of like, I can't deal with anymore. I need to take a break, but the animals need me, and then I won't know what's going on, and I won't know what I need to be doing next. And so we don't take long enough as well. So, it's so fantastic that you've got this outlet that we can just, there's nothing wrong with going within and with, working on ourselves for a bit and just coming back that much stronger.
But this kind of way at Vegan FTA now, we want to make our advocates and our activists out there as effective as possible. Again, other people on board with veganism, because it means when you need to take a break, if you can help other people get on board, you're helping to fill your own shoes there. So you can take the break you need, get someone new on the front line, get them to be effective as well. And we can get this a lot closer and a lot faster. And hopefully we can keep helping the animals, even when some of us have to step back for a time being. It's
definitely. And the first thing we did, thanks to you and your resources, was get into meditation. And we didn't want to meditate. We're very shy about meditating in front of each other, like what if the other one's like peeking while the other one is meditating, or we don't know how to do it right, but
we still giggle when we have the Om thing.
We're not very good at chanting. No, we do more chuckling than chanting. We need to work on that. But it's been really life-changing for us for mental health and for everything that we do, and we really have you to thank for that. It's very much so. So, thank you for helping us with our personal growth. And, that's a theme that we do see throughout your work with Paradise Rising. And over this last year, when we've been trying to catch up for so long, we've seen you just bloom into so many different opportunities. And all too often, we come across people that feel that just being vegan is enough. There's no need to grow any further than consuming ethically. It's like Gareth said, this is why we need to encourage people to become activists rather than simply vegan. How do you feel about these types of remarks, and why should we keep trying to further ourselves and our compassion?
Such a good question, and so important. Thank you. Firstly, I think it's relevant to this question as well as just wanting to touch on what you were saying about the competition and there's no right or wrong way to be an activist, and it's not like putting, you know, certain types of activism on some kind of pedestal, or some kind of you know, feeling like judging of ourselves or anybody else for doing what they feel called to do. You know, writing is so important. Drawing, you know, I love the paintings and the drawings that you've got behind you as well. You know, that kind of activism. There's no, you know, people don't do the frontline stuff. You know, people put themselves in positions that they don't want to be in. But that can be in many different ways. You know, that's their soul is calling them to do that. Your soul is calling you to be a writer, and that's beautiful. Everybody's unique. We're all individual. We all have different callings, and we all have our own ways of advocating and activating. So there's no right or wrong way, and it's not a competition. So I just wanted to touch on that, and to have, as it, you know, relates to this question, these comments as well, about having compassion for other activists and having compassion for others, other humans as well as other animals. Super important. I think it's vital, actually, that we do develop that consistent compassion for each other as well as for the animals, because, you know, there's you know, we're all working through our own things. We're all very much the same in many ways. We're all human, but we're all very different as well. And we all have our own traumas. We all have our own addictions. We all have our own, you know, experiences, conditioning, programming that has created us, that we are who we are today because of, you know, a buildup of a whole lot of stuff. So having compassion for each other and allowing each other to be who they are without trying to, you know, control or change anybody, I think is really, really important. And so doing that personal development work, getting in touch with ourselves, as we've said, you know, that personal development work that I've done over the last couple of years now is has really changed the game for me in so many different ways. And as you say, like, just focusing on one way of being, you know, I see veganism as a really powerful, really transformational way that we can make the world a better place for all beings, humans included, and the environment and everything. There's so much that veganism covers. It's animal rights, it's human rights, it's the environment, consuming ethically, consuming in a way that has as little negative impact on the world around us, is super important. But also just cultivating compassion for each other and everybody else's journey. You know, if somebody is yeah, we're all on our own journey. And I know probably people within the movement have heard that and maybe don't like it or feel triggered by that. But it's true, you know, we all are paving our own way. We're all on our own path. And there's no sense, I don't think, in judging each other for the way that we're living, the way that we're presenting ourselves, the work that we're doing. It's really, I think it's really important to see ourselves reflected in each other, and to know that we're all connected. We're all one, essentially, at the end of the day. We're all on this beautiful planet together. Everything is interconnected, and yeah, it all starts with love. It all comes back to love. Really consistent compassion is love. And coming from that place of like being a love-based activist or a heart-centered activist, you know, forgiveness as well, I think, is a really, really important key to all of this. And that's key to our own freedom as well. You know, we're talking about animal rights, animal liberation, human rights, freedom for the whole planet, freedom for ourselves from the paradigm that we're trying to shift. I think that's the first step with veganism for me as well. You know, especially when I went vegan, and not everybody's going to resonate with this. It's not everybody's going to agree, but I saw it for myself as like a red pill, as like a way of stepping out of the matrix myself. And that's how I see it. It's removing ourselves from a paradigm, from a system that I don't agree with, and forgiving myself through that process from, you know, years of contributing to things that I then realized I didn't want to contribute to, but also forgiving the world and forgiving others, and that kind of elevated me into more of a place of freedom over the last year or so as well, coming to being able to find unconditional love. That is, you know, love is the greatest teacher. I find love is the greatest teacher. It's the most powerful force, is actually sharing from a place of love for the animals, for in terms of activism, but also just how we show up in the world and how we interact with people who aren't necessarily on the same page as us exactly at that time. Still being able to have relationships with, you know, family members, friends, any loved ones who aren't necessarily vegan, but we're very aligned in many other ways. We still want to have those relationships. I'm blessed to have amazing friends who love and support me, who aren't vegan, and I love them, and I'm so grateful for those connections. And, you know, not judging and not feeling, and I know it's easier said than done. Forgiveness is a big thing, but I think it's easier when we're able to cultivate gratitude, and finding gratitude and finding light in everything, finding gratitude for lessons in everything, and being able to integrate those lessons, and being able to still love and still have compassion for each other, is so much more powerful than trying to, you know, control or make people change, make somebody be something or someone that they don't feel at that time, whether they are just not ready, or whether that's just not, you know. I think for me now, my activism is more focused on conscious, informed choice in all areas. You know, what we're choosing to put in our bodies, we need to be informed about what we're putting in our bodies, and we need to make conscious decisions and activate our free will. We're all born with free will, and being able to use that and decide for ourselves what we're going to do, and not try and, you know, not attaching so heavily to the outcome of what other people do. Because I think that's where a lot of burnout comes from as well for activists, is having a sense of like trying so hard to make something happen, or trying so hard to make people be a certain way. And it's super detrimental to our own mental health. And it doesn't actually, I think it creates and builds up more resistance with other people. And so really coming from love, truly coming from love, I think that's, you know, the way that I like to promote activism, is like subtle energy. I think understanding energy, and for all of us, learning about energy in general is super important as well. And being subtle in our approaches is really important, because people feel it, and people build up more resistance, and defense mechanisms are triggered when people are feel like their life is threatened, or their lifestyle is threatened. Their defense mechanisms are going to be triggered, and that can look like anything can happen. If somebody feels like they're super under threat, I think it's natural that that things come out in a defensive way, and having compassion for their expressions and the way that they do things. And it might end up hurting us as activists as well, and just allowing people to express themselves, allowing people to be who they are without that need for control, I think is really important. And that's that's just something that I've learned from my own personal experience throughout, you know, the last like couple of years especially, but really taking the time to look at myself and look at how my relationships are playing out, and people that I really truly love, and I want them to be free to be themselves. Yeah, I think it's super important. So I hope that answers your question. I'm not sure, I kind of went on a few different tangents there.
No, it's a wonderful perspective. Thank you so much for sharing. It's really valuable. And it brings, made me think of going right back to the activist series when we interviewed Dr. Clapper. And he told us, you know, the biggest piece of advice that he could give us to people that were not, like you say, on that same path as us, or not in that same place as us, was just lead by example. You know, that it's the most valuable thing. And we just, you know, we tell ourselves that over and over again, don't we? When we feel, yeah, we may be talking to a brick wall or meeting resistance, or, you know, all we can do is lead by example and just show this way of being in a positive light, and make other people want to be like that as well. Hopefully, it's you know, rather than saying you're wrong because, you know, you're not living as I'm living.
It brings me back to the metaphor that we're always using about, you know, planting seeds when it comes to veganism and such. And this is the thing, you can't see under the soil. You can't see how those roots are growing. You know, they may not be blossoming up top yet, but, you know, they may be growing strong roots before that stage. And you can't always see these things. And it's something we've been trying to do throughout the activist series, is show people different forms of activism. And there's been activists on it that when I first heard about them, I was like, what are they doing? You know, I don't think that's an effective way of activism.
A bit extreme.
Yeah, that's too hardcore. But, you know, taking the time, you know, accepting them, talking to them, you start to learn about it. And you may still find that, you know, that's not your form of activism, or that's not your way of being vegan. But, you know, you can learn to accept and understand it, and then you become closer by it. And yeah, you're happier about one another, you know, you're not so bothered by each other. And that's fantastic, you know. And like, well, to be honest, I've grown to love a lot more forms of activism through that. Exactly. And it's just so beautiful. And I love that, trying to bring gratitude into the day. And there's an exercise that we learned that I haven't been very good at doing lately, but it's when you're going out and about with your day, whenever there's something that might annoy you, like for me, say someone driving badly. I was
going to say drivers with you, I'll be driving.
I'm quite the swearer when it comes in the car. But instead of going, well, I won't say it on camera, something that ending well off, you know, it's like, I'm grateful that you are that you have something important enough to be in a rush for, you know, like, and just trying to rephrase things when it comes out that someone is annoying you. Well, I'm grateful that, you know, you're in such a hurry, you know, that there must be something so important in your life. And just, it seems stupid, it seems silly, but if you do that throughout the day, you soon get so much more positive and so much more sort of radiant, because, you know, instead of,
you become unflappable, don't you? Really?
Yeah, instead of getting caught up on these things, you know, I'm grateful, you know, I'm grateful that you're an idiot sometimes, you know, but it's like, it can be very hard, but I do encourage people to try flipping it sometimes, because yeah, it can be great for your own personal growth.
It's a lot healthier for sure. And I think, you know, when it comes to being active and choosing with how we move forward, once we make, you know, the choice to live this way, it's, you know, doing something is better than doing nothing at all. Everybody's got something to offer in some different way, like you say, whether it's writing, whether it's art, whether it's doing vigils, whether it's, you know, doing that real frontline stuff. Whatever we choose, doing something in whatever capacity we can manage is better than doing nothing at all, you know. Which kind of leads me nicely into what I've been wanting to ask you is, what do we find, what do our followers find at Paradise Rising, you know, and who do we find, what kind of people can we find there?
Oh, amazing. Yeah. I love everything that you've just said. There's so many things that I could kind of pinpoint and be like,
sorry, I'm a rambler, I go off a bit. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, well, with the studios, because it is at this relaunch kind of phase. You know, a couple of years ago we launched in the UK officially as Paradise Rising as the organization, but now because it's more of a label, it's going to be more of a music label in future. At this point, we are really focusing on the first kind of stages of leading up to that, which is more about empowerment, guidance, support, and development. and then eventually it'll be representation and be able to really share people's work as a platform. But at this point, I mean, it's me. I'm the founder, the director, and there are other people that, you know, are very involved and very active to support and develop it. But really, it's me running courses at this point. So, you know, if people want to get involved, it would look like either joining another boot camp, which I'll be running at some point soon. But in a couple of weeks, I'll be launching an event, a 5-week course, which is designed to support people's messaging as activists, but also just anybody who feels like they are on a mission to guide the evolution of the planet in whatever shape, way, or form that might be. So that's the basis of it, is really to help people with their messaging, with speaking the truth, sharing whatever is in their heart to be shared, that needs to come through them, whether that's for animal rights, whether that's for human rights, or talking about spirituality, or talking about the environment, whatever. So it's a very diverse range of people who I work with. You know, I don't limit myself to only working with vegans or only working with activists. It's everybody and anybody who has an important message to help guide the planet, and to help guide humanity in many different ways. So yeah, it's a very diverse group of people who we will be working with. You know, I have found myself, and I'm very happy to have found myself in many different kind of groups and communities, and especially working in spiritual kind of spaces over the last couple of years. And that's been a massive contributor to my personal growth, my personal development. And I feel like, yeah, again, I think learning about energy is super important, and that's a form of activism. People might not even resonate with the word activism, but they're creating change, activating people into their sovereignty, into their you know, as I said, inherent freedom, our free will. So yeah, there's a lot of different people, a lot of different messages that will come through, but really it's about so this course that I'll be launching in a couple of weeks is really about supporting people's release of dense emotions, dense energy, releasing ourselves from traumatic experiences, and through the arts specifically. So this is it's called catharsis, which means basically purging or releasing emotion to renew the spirit. So the tagline for catharsis for the course is pour out your soul, renew your spirit. So it's renewing ourselves and allowing ourselves to rise into who we truly are, remembering more of who we truly are, and being able to clear out space within ourselves so that messages can come through with clarity and with strength and with power and with you know, with compassion, with love. So we're not meeting as much resistance in presenting messages in a way that are just you know, more destructive, but hopefully presenting messages that are just encouraging and uplifting and inspiring and supportive. So yeah, it's it's really exciting for me to be able to share that and to be guiding this course. So it's 5 weeks, and there'll be a lot more of other things in future. So that's one kind of container, a course, but there'll also be a platform called Active Arts Academy, which I'll launch later in the year, which is more about promoting and supporting artists who are already doing their work, living their calling, presenting their messages through their art in an active way, because, you know, we need to do the inner work, but also creating change through being active and putting those lessons and those integrated teachings into action to create change. As you say, it all needs to happen. There are a lot of people who are already doing amazing things with their art, and so as a platform, that's what that the intention behind that is to really, for us all to learn from each other and to be inspired by each other's work, and to absorb the codes, you might say, from people's amazing art. And whether that is painting, whether that's energy that comes through dance, whether that's music videos, messages that come through in many different ways. That's the intention, is to have that as a platform. And we've already been working on some playlists over the last year or two on Spotify and on YouTube. So I encourage people to go and check them out and see what resonates with them there, because they are I see it as really powerful divine activism, is how I think of it. I'm just super inspired by a lot of amazing people doing a lot of amazing things. So it's a privilege for me to be doing this work and to be connecting with such incredible people like yourselves. You do so much, and it's so inspiring, and it's so, I just love the energy that you two have as people, and the messages that you present on your social media, and the messages you present on Vegan FTA, and connecting the dots with all these different people doing different things. It's really cool. So thank you for that.
Oh,
thank you so much. And
that all sounds fantastic. Yeah, I like the sound of that.
Sure to have a link to Paradise Rising Studio in the bio of this video.
We should just clarify, actually, is it, and that's something that everybody can do? You can do that course from wherever you are?
Yeah, it'll all be online. Yeah, so we'll be meeting for this particular course. We'll be meeting twice a week, and I do a free live stream on my Instagram every Sunday night, or most Sunday nights, which is just connecting with women at this point. In future, we will have men as well. We'll be connecting with both, but I feel like, because I really care about female empowerment as well, I really feel called at this point to be connecting with women, female entrepreneurs, female activists, people working in lots of different spaces. And that's a free live stream on my Instagram page. But so that's once a week, and then twice a week with the course, we'll be meeting for a masterclass, kind of a lot of information that we'll be sharing together through that, in more of like a study teaching kind of way. And then another day that during that week we'll come together for more of a sharing circle. So I think of it as like a round table. We're coming together to present our messages, and to do the shadow work together, because I think that's really important. Part of going vegan is what I see that as shadow work. It's delving into difficult acceptances, and seeing the truth of what's going on in the world, and taking those lessons and making the changes that we feel called to make. And as you said, Gareth, I really resonated with what you said about, I can't remember the words you used, but something about everybody's veganism being a bit different. That's what I picked up from that. And I think that that's really important to understand, that we're not all the same. It's important that we are diverse, we are different, and recognizing that everybody's way of living, even if we identify as vegan or as a feminist or whatever, it's all going to manifest slightly differently, and that's fine. That's good. So where was I going with that? Diversity and inclusion, super important. And and doing the shadow work. So that supported shadow work once a week is going to be super transformational, I think, as well, alongside being able to share together through the classes and the empowerment stuff on Instagram. So so it's all online. It's all the one session is free, and then the course is obviously, it's a paid course. But it's an investment, I think, into ourselves, because it's really important for us to do that kind of work. I think, as you say, for yourselves, getting into meditation has been really powerful for you guys, and I'm so happy that that's happened. It's definitely changed my life. So yeah, through all these different kind of avenues, I think we're going to be able to make some massive change. So I'm really excited.
Sounds awesome. I'm so glad we've been able to talk to you about it right at this exciting time, and thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's it's, as I said, it's a privilege, and it's really exciting, and it's really nice to be able to connect and to present this stuff, because it's been on my heart for a long time to be able to get it out there, and now I'm ready to go.